It's now that we've arrived at the end of this module that we jump into some practice activities to really cement our understanding of the English skills learnt in this module. So practice activities for all of the different skills we've learned throughout sharing experiences. So let's jump into activity 1. Write a definition of what an idiom is. 1-2 sentences, write a definition. What is an idiom? And inside your definition, include an example idiom to explain your meaning, to show and further explain that you understand what an idiom is. You've got 2 minutes starting now. Okay, so that is your 2 minutes up. So we have a definition of the idiom plus an example. And here is my definition. An idiom is a type of expression where the words used look very different to the phrase's real meaning. For example, bite the bullet means to accept a difficult situation, but it doesn't actually mean bite down on a bullet. Of course, that would be severely painful. So there is my definition and there is my example. Definitely do compare your explanation, your definition of what an idiom is with mine. Just make sure that you have a solid understanding of what an idiom actually is. Okay, activity 2. Write a definition for each of the following idioms, and if you can, try and write a sentence with the idiom included within the sentence. So an example sentence using the idiom that maybe you would use within speech. First up we have a crack at it. The elephant in the room. And rub salt in the wound. So write a definition for each of these 3 idioms, and if you can, try and write an example sentence too. You have 2 minutes starting now. Okay, time is up. So let's take a look at my definitions for each of these idioms. Have a crack at it. To give something a really good go and try your very best. The elephant in the room. To talk about something everybody knows, but maybe they don't want to discuss it because they're a little bit embarrassed, or maybe it is awkward to start discussing this with people. A difficult conversation is probably another way to look at this. Rub salt in the wound. A bad situation made even worse by a person's actions, or possibly just by another event unfolding that makes the situation even worse, that rubs salt into an already painful wound. Have a look at your definitions and just see if you're close to my own definitions here. Okay, activity 3. Identify and correct the mistakes in the following sentences using past modals. So we have, I think I shouldn't have not skipped class. Maybe you not have slept well today. Thinking back, we could have tried hardest. So, using these sentences with past modals, correct the mistakes and rewrite. I will give you 2 minutes starting now. Okay, so let's take a look at these sentences with the mistakes corrected, starting with, I think I shouldn't have not skipped class. There's a few errors within this, and let's see the completed version. I think I shouldn't have skipped class. So in the errors, we've added an extra not, which is included in the contraction shouldn't, should not. And also skip, meaning miss. Skip, the past participle is not PT. Skip, PED, both past tense and past participle. So some errors with the way that we've written our verb skip here. Okay, moving on. Maybe you not have slept well today. Let's see this. Maybe you haven't slept well today. So it seems that our sentence structure and order, the syntax of the sentence, is a bit confused. Maybe you not have. Maybe you haven't slept well today. And finally, thinking back, we could have tried hardest. There's two major mistakes here. Thinking back, we could have tried harder. So we have the past participle of try, tried, and hardest would become harder. Some of you may have wanted to, or maybe you did, change could have to couldn't possibly, but actually could have is perfectly fine. It's actually a very native sounding contraction. Could have, should have, should have. So that's perfectly fine to have that in the sentence. Have a look at your own answers and just make sure you've got everything correct there. Okay, activity 4. Connect the modal verb to the correct meaning. So I'm going to give you a list of modal verbs and give you a random order of different definitions and meanings, and you need to connect them together to the correct modal verb to the correct meaning. So we have past modals: must have, should have, might have, would have, and could have. So we have 5 past modals. And here are our definitions. An action or event in the past that you are unsure happened. An action in the past that was possible. An action or event in the past you know or believe did happen. An action or event in the past you feel was desired. And an action or event in the past that was desirable and with further knowledge and hindsight would have happened. This definitely action would have taken place. Okay, so your 2 minutes to connect start now. Okay, let's take a look at the different definitions connected to the modal verbs. And I will just say that this is quite a tricky activity. So let's see the answers here. So, must have, an action or event in the past you know or believe did happen. should have, an action or event in the past you feel was desired. Might have, an action or event in the past you are unsure happened. Would have, an action or event in the past that was desirable, and with further knowledge and hindsight you would have done it. And finally, could have, an action in the past that was possible. Again, quite a tricky activity because the true meanings of modal verbs and past modal verbs are pretty similar. So being able to define each is definitely a good skill, but not the easiest bit of understanding to have. The issue here, or one of the two most difficult, would be to separate should and would, should have and would have, because their meanings are so similar. But if I'm to separate them, I like to think that should have is something I definitely think an action that needed to happen. It should have taken place, and I'm not really giving any further information. Whereas would have is again a desirable action, but generally because of further information. It's more about reflecting back on past experiences and saying, if I knew, I would have. For example, if I knew you were sick, I would have helped you more. So a slight different. I should have, I would have, very similar, but possibly a slightly different usage too. Okay, moving on to our final practice activity, activity 5. So create 5 examples of abstract and concrete nouns each. So I want you to write down 5 different abstract nouns and 5 different concrete nouns. So start that now. Okay, time is up. So let's take a look at my examples of abstract nouns. We have sadness, tired, regret, communication and laughter, all things we cannot touch. And my concrete nouns are chair, wheel, towel, hammer and computer, all things we can touch. So very important to be able to understand the difference between abstract and concrete nouns, and also thinking of this module's topic, sharing experiences and talking about things that have happened to you in the past. Feelings of abstract nouns of feelings are really important in doing this. So that brings us to the end of this language practice activity, and it also brings us to the end of this module. So get ready and let's move on.